Welcome to another episode of Bourbon and Data Breaches, where we cover 5 of the most interesting breaches from this last week. I'm Steve.
I'm Connor.
I'm Frank.
This week, we have telecom titans, semiconductors, schools, supply chains, and salad bowls. When ransomware hits everything from cable TV to kale. Getting started with story number 1, we've got Comcast, or Xfinity, depending on how you like to say it. Space claims they breached Comcast. Yes, the same Comcast you reset your modem for every time Netflix starts buffering. This is a massive potential data exposure. Millions of households, businesses, and probably every Xfinity hotspot you've ever accidentally connected could be impacted.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw that on the screenshot, but it said get fast, reliable internet with cybersecurity included. So it seems like a little bit of oxymoron today. But yeah, in all seriousness, when we see large telecom companies get hit, large telecom companies have been hit pretty regularly and have impacted me personally, and I know millions of people. So big impacts potentially here. And I think there's about 2 days left on the Spacefare's clock for this one. Time will tell what's actually in that file, but definitely very concerning.
That sounds like they have the same kind of internet that I have today. You can have a taste of my own third world experience. Okay. Well, I think this could be the breach of the year, if you ask me. We're talking about a structural weakness in one of the most essential digital services in the US. This is a company that handles internet, TV, home security, enterprise fiber, and half the modem resets in the US. A breach at this scale means a threat to customers' confidence in a provider that sits on top of millions of connections. And because Comcast runs on a massive mix of old tech, regional networks, and underfunded support infrastructure, an intrusion here makes me wonder how much of that complexity they can actually secure, especially after something like this. I think the blast radius of this could be huge, not for the wow factor, but for the operational mess that comes afterward.
Moving right along to story number 2, Renesas Electronics. This is a Japanese semiconductor and automotive microcontroller leader who had a date with Coinbase cartel. Again, not to be confused with the company Coinbase. Renesas, whose chips help run your car, factory robots, medical devices, and half the world's IoT, was reportedly hit by Coinbase cartel ransomware. When semiconductor companies get breached, that's not a pebble in the pond, that's a meteor hitting the supply chain.
Okay, I'm going to take this too far, maybe, but having Comcast as the opening act, remember the end scene of Fight Club where all the financial towers, the system's real engine, collapse all at once? My point here is you don't need to bring down the whole world when you can't disrupt the company that makes the chips that run everything that keeps the world moving. Automation systems, industrial controllers, medical devices, IoT, this is like the bloodstream of global manufacturing, production timelines, firmware integrity, product roadmaps, and once again, trust between partners Philippe and Renesas being rock solid. The Coinbase cartel here is showing some true understanding of the leverage game, which one critical supplier, and suddenly you're playing with economic pressure, not just stolen PDFs. Now, I may sound like one of the bad guys, but the strategic value of even claiming Renesas is truly massive.
Yeah, and unlike Comcast or Xfinity, Renesas, whatever the pronunciation is, my apologies. It's not a household name, but when you look into them, one of the leading providers of MPUs, MCUs, right? We already have a microchip shortage. So speaking more into that supply chain impact, pretty much everything in our daily life these days relies on microchips. So these ransomware attacks can have a significant impact, especially when it hits the supply chain as hard.
Switching gears a little bit, we have the Ward Law-Hartridge School in the United States. This is an independent K-12 school. Ransomware allegedly hit the Ward Law-Hartridge School, leaking student records, admin files, and communications, because nothing says elite cybercriminal syndicate like compromising a middle school science fair.
Okay, so this is the total opposite of today's previous stories. War leaks going after a private K-12 school is kind of low, man. I don't know what's going on with this gang, but this is just like mugging someone for bus money. There's no strategic value, no intelligence gain, no complex infrastructure to show off your skills, at least against. Not even funny. You're basically announcing the world that you couldn't find a real target this week. But the sad part is the consequences. Schools hold extremely sensitive data on minors, families, finances, learning disabilities, medical notes, all the kind of stuff you don't want to see end up in a leak dump. So this feels like one of those stories where the criminals reveal more about their lack of skills and creativity than their actual power. And the impact, unfortunately, still lands on the wrong people.
Yeah, Frank, when we talk about Renesas and Comcast back to back. And then you look at this as a K-12-6 school and it doesn't feel as flashy at all, right? But again, there's significant impacts here when it comes to student PII, internal documents, right? And this could lead to lifelong problems for some of these kids, like potential identity theft. These days, most of us have to deal with that problem with the amount of incidents like this that are occurring consistently. Definitely concerning. And I hope that most of these students do not have anything too terribly compromised.
Moving back into the compromising business realm, we've got Soudas in France. Soudas is an industrial and technical supply distributor, and Renesas Ransomware decided to have a meeting with them. So Renesas Ransomware claims they hit Soudas, a major supplier for contractors and industrial service providers across Europe. When a distributor gets breached, you're not just hitting one company, you're hitting the ecosystem that keeps everyone else running. You can see they're all ready for some Christmas shopping on their site. This is not exactly the Christmas miracle that people were hoping for.
Yeah, definitely the opposite of a Christmas miracle here. While this is more of an industrial company who some people might not have top of mind as a potential victim for a ransomware attack, but again, their supply chains, right? They're a major supplier in France for contractors, industrial suppliers, businesses who work in automotive, gardening, et cetera. The amount of customers that this impacts, the amount of businesses that impact is large. These ransomware gangs are making these kind of targets where it might be potentially easier point of entry for them due to some industry history, lack of controls against certain attacks, or underfunded cybersecurity teams. But they also realize that this creates a lot of pressure on their customer base if they can't get their orders in, which maybe results in a faster, more likely payment for the ransomware gang. Just an assumption of things that we see more broadly in this industry. Another supply chain impact, which has extended effects on multiple businesses.
I think this is an example of how ransomware operators weaponize supply chains without needing to touch the big names. We're probably not talking about a glamorous name in the industry, but it's critical. While all of their partners rely on these middle-tier suppliers to keep projects alive, you freeze a company like this at the wrong moment. And to your point, not only dozens of downstream companies lose money, time, materials, and also end up in a schedule and commitment mess. So again, that chain effect can be more valuable than attacking a single household brand. PETA keeps aiming at targets where the real damage comes from the network underneath the company, not the company itself, reminding us once again that today's ransomware isn't about headlines anymore. It's about leverage as just another supplier.
And our final story today, Bourbon Remedy. If you don't know that name, you are not alone. Evidently, they are a national organic food and wellness brand. A name I do know well, Quillen Ransomware reportedly infiltrated Bourbon Remedy. It's a company that sells cold-pressed juices that cost more than my first car payment. The attackers claim access to operational and commercial documents, which could create headaches across retail and distribution networks. I clearly am not eating with purpose because I did not know who they were.
Yeah, we're talking less about the brand and more about the operational fragility behind it. These wellness companies run on tight logistics, perishable products, boutique supply chains, trendy retail partnerships, and a marketing strategy that collapses the instant customers feel the company isn't clean anymore. I think Quillen understands something most people tend to overlook. Lifestyle brands are not protected by cybersecurity maturity. They're protected by hype, but hype could also be the easiest thing in the world to puncture.
Yeah. And, to your point, Quillen always stays pretty busy, right? You think 50 plus, usually 60, 70 plus victims a month. And when it comes to Bourbon Remedy, not a name that I recognize, but I looked them up. It looks like their annual revenue is estimated around 70 million. So definitely have money to pay a ransomware gang. So pretty surprised by that, but maybe Quillen having influence isn't too surprised. I think they operate pretty effectively and probably realize the high revenue company that might be able to pay pretty quickly and they might be able to get in pretty easily. Just another example of these ransomware gangs not being random, even though it might look like they are.
Bourbon Remedy sells energizing cleanses.
What is that?
Rain juice.
That's when you flush your body.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe Quillen will be doing an energizing cleanse this holiday season. Wow. From cable giants and chip manufacturers to schools, industrial distributors, and even organic food brands, ransomware continues to hit every layer of daily life. If it connects to people, products, or infrastructure, someone is trying to breach it, even your cleanse provider. Pour a bourbon, encrypt your data, and remember, hackers don't discriminate, they diversify. Until next time.